the ability to open up Africa, to say, come home if you wish, come to stay, come to visit. But Africa is saying, welcome home. That alone is healing in a very profound way. It behooves us to bring the diaspora together, let them understand what is really going on in our Africa. Diaspora are not going home, diaspora are angry about Africa because they are not understanding the root cause of why Africa is where it is today. They think getting rid of a president will take care of the problem. Far from it. Right now, there is no voice. African Union is like a dead entity, and something needs to happen there. African Union is one entity that could speak on behalf of the continent, that could speak and call out those who are abusing Africa. It is the one place that we could actually let the world know that the exploitation and abuse of the African continent has got to come to an end.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I hope you're all doing fine from wherever you're watching me from now. Dr. Arikana Chihombori and the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, have been doing a tremendous work to unite black people. Now, they have been calling out on African diaspora to come back home and unite and fight the oppression that has been facing the continent for the longest time. Now, they do not fear talking about the truth. They have been calling out France. They have been calling out the US. And for all the atrocities they have caused to the people of Africa and to the children of Africa who have been enslaved in their countries for the longest time. So let's watch this video, then have a very quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
But be it as it may, the legacy of slavery, the legacy of colonization left the African feeling inferior, feeling they're incapable, admiring everything else that somebody else is doing, that everything African is undesirable, that we're always looking to what those who don't look like us are doing, and we want to emulate what they are doing. Mm-hmm. That, to me, the biggest risk to Africa's development is the mind. When we can... Yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted, to focus on that particular question. If you were to distribute, and I'm not going to, take away from the fact that you said, the mind is where we need to start from. But if you were to distribute it in terms of, apportioning blames to the root cause and the immediate cause, because people have also pointed at how it is that Africans themselves are conducting themselves and, do not seem to have sufficient compassion for the people as African leaders, do not have sufficient compassion for the people that they lead. How would you distribute this particular blame? Would you say 50% to root causes, 50% to immediate causes? In what proportion would you share it?
I would say the biggest problem right now is the mind. I still believe it is the mind. Secondly, the average African leader is fighting with their hands tied behind their back, and in some cases also blindfolded. I really don't want us to get lost in the mud about peripheral issues. Remember what I said. You get into an accident situation, first you assess the heartbeat. Does the patient have a pulse? Is the patient breathing? We worry about the blown up eye, we worry about the broken bone later. We must go to the root causes. If a president of a country, my daughter, let me take you, you become the president of Nigeria today. With all good intentions, you are told, do not talk about your military, because we got that under our control as France. Do not talk about your financial resources. We control your central bank. We manage your financial policies. Do not talk about your finances. We have that under our control. Do not talk about your natural resources. Those belong to us. All your contracts, we shall choose and decide who builds your country. Now, if you stay away from all that, you are not free to run your country. What do you have? You've given up your natural resources. You've given up control of your financial resources. You've given up control of your military. What kind of a leader are you? I don't care what intentions you have. I don't care how Pan-African you are. I don't care how smart you are. Your hands are tied behind your back and you're blindfolded and you're supposed to engage in a fight and win. How? So I'm saying, before we even talk about how good a leader you are, I can tell you, I was joking with a friend. I said, I'm pretty sure right now, President Bazoum is probably happy. Because what kind of country was he leading? He had no power. He had nothing to control. That's a joke of a leadership. So once we understand that, we then go back and say, okay, fine. With whatever you were given, what have you done with it? Now I'm ready to start putting blame on the leader to say, okay, you had a small budget for healthcare. What did you do? Did you at least build one hospital during that year? Now, if it's a foreign minister, a minister of health, who is now failing to do something with that budget for 1 year, IMF, World Bank, all other institutions, they make African countries jump through hoops. Loans will never be able to pay. The US, when they borrow money, they're getting it in 1.5, 1.9 interest rate. Africans, when they get the same amount of money, they're paying 9, 10%. The people who don't need a break, they get a break. The ones who need a break, they don't get a break. The sheer survival of the World Bank, IMF, is based on the fact that African countries and many other developing countries do not succeed. Their success is based on our failure. That has to change. And guess who can make that change? We, the children of Africa, we, the Africans, are the ones who have to say, we know your game now. Enough is enough. We're not playing it anymore. And this is where the diaspora come in. There are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City than in the entire country of Ghana. There are more Nigerian doctors in LA than in the entire country of Nigeria. So let's be serious here. What Africa needs is capacity, capacity, capacity. And that capacity is in the diaspora. So it behooves us to bring the diaspora together. Let them understand what is really going on in our Africa. Diaspora are not going home. Diaspora are angry about Africa because they are not understanding the root cause of why Africa is where it is today. They think getting rid of a president will take care of the problem. Far from it. That president is just going to be replaced by another one who is going to equally suffer from the same difficult environment to work in. So let's look at an Africa that must be free to take care of herself, an Africa that's free from exploitation from outsiders. The multinationals who are stealing from Africa every day in broad daylight. I use an example of the DRC. If you ever fly very low over the DRC, you'll see tarmacs in the jungle. You'll see 747s flying into DRC, picking up minerals and flying right out. The same multinationals are responsible for arming young people and giving them MK-16s. Because why? Their satellites in the skies are telling them where that village is. There are lots of diamonds. So what do? Arm young people, drag them up, and send them to go chop off a few heads. The rest of the village runs away, so they come behind and do their illegal mining. We black people must understand what is really going on. Because what we are shown instead is, oh, look at those Africans killing each other. There are some serious games that have been played in Africa for far too long. And once we understand that, we can strategize as to how we can begin to bring the difference and bring the change that Africa needs. And that change can only come if the African diaspora are united. And the Wakanda villages, as I call them, it is our organized way of saying, starting with one African diaspora center of excellence, it will be a new city, a developmental hub that we can then take from there. Every sector is developed. Take healthcare. How many doctors do we need in this region to take care of this many people? We pick up education, same thing. We pick up engineering. We pick up electricity. How many megawatts of power do we have in the region? How many do we need? Be it solar, be it wind, be it hydro, be it geothermal, be it nuclear.
I want to bring you back to West Africa. President Alassane Ouattara made a declaration that the franc CFA will be replaced with the ECO. But many will argue that because there's still foreign reserves being placed into French economy, it's just the same currency, different name.
Absolutely. I agree with that. The question I had right from the get-go, first, is pegged to the euro. Secondly, it's still going to be printed in France. Third, they may try to say we are eliminating the colonial tax, but they're replacing it with the foreign exchange tax. These countries are very capable of negotiating their own deals. Their funds don't have to go through the French central bank. Even countries wanting to trade with African countries, they don't have to go through French central bank. So there are all those technicalities that are just stupid. What's needed is complete separation. France has got to get out of Africa, really, honestly. Enough is enough. To take $500 billion out of Africa. I mean, it is insanity of the highest order. In countries that are supposedly poor, and making those countries fund French education, French healthcare system, create jobs for French youth while we are struggling in our country. It's no longer sustainable. President Macron needs to wake up and smell the coffee. And the African youth are the ones he's going to have to deal with. The African youth are not taking it anymore. They want what belongs to them. Financial institutions, them too. If I had my way, all the African heads of states should stop paying back any loans that were given by IMF and World Bank. Those loans have been paid gazillion times over.
Many people in the diaspora are wondering, yes, you're no longer the ambassador to the US, but they would like for you to take up the position of the African Union Commission.
I have to say, when the drumbeat was getting louder about me becoming the chairman of the African Union, I disregarded it because it's nothing that I've ever thought about. But increasingly, as we are looking at the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, you have to understand the role of the African Union Commission is to be the implementer of the decisions that are agreed upon by the African heads of states. So it's important that we not get a career diplomat who's now only looking for their next position. We need somebody who can think outside the box. We need a business-minded person because people are dying, my dear young child. We've got to realize that children are dying every day. Women are dying every day. Millions of youth are unemployed, and we're too busy being diplomatic, not hitting the nail in the head. If we don't get an African Union chair who realizes that you're under the table and they're making you fight with your brothers and sisters as to who got the larger chunk of the crumbs under the table, that way you never have to talk about what's on the table. That is a blind chair. We need somebody who gets it. I do know that there's a need for major disruption at the African Union level. If I were to become chair of the African Union, I want to bring disruption.
As we look at the African woman today, when we seek for crucial areas where she can be empowered and enabled, where should we focus? Should we focus in land right for economic freedom, or should we focus on them being in leadership positions for decision-making process?
First of all, in order for the African woman to move forward, it starts with the mind. Women in general, actually, we have a tendency to just apologize, and we just don't think we're quite able to get there. Granted, our challenges are real. Let's make a commitment to say we will succeed. Nobody is superior to us. We will get the job done. Let's find strength within each other that we are going to take care of ourselves. We're taking care of our neighborhoods. We're taking care of our homes. We're taking care of our Mother Africa. That commitment and that change of mindset, once we have the change of mindset, the game is over. Because you can take me wherever you take me. If my mind is in the right place, there is nothing you can do to me. There are no games you can play with me.
On that very point, what is your view on gender equality, in the African context especially?
In African culture, we, the women, have always ruled. The men might think that they have ruled, but behind the scenes, it was always us. I like to share the story of Nanaya Asantwa. She was the gatekeeper of the Golden Stool in the Ashanti Kingdom. When the British were trying to take the Golden Stool from the Ashanti people, the men had given in. They were ready to give up the Golden Stool in exchange for the king who was in exile in Mauritius. But you got to understand that the Golden Stool is where the spirit of the Ashanti people is housed. So when you give up the Golden Stool, you have given up the spirit of a people. Our men, our Ashanti men, were ready to give up the spirit of the Ashanti people. Nanaya Asantwa, as the gatekeeper of the Golden Stool, she said, absolutely not. And let me paraphrase her speech. She said, I shall call upon all my female sisters. We will pick up arms and we will fight the British till the last one of us is down. We then picked up arms, organized, and they fought the British and defended the Golden Stool. That is the power that the African woman has.
Madam Ambassador, Our Voices is a show that brings the women's voices at the table. What is your message to them today?
My message to the African woman is to say, you, the African woman, without you, there would not be any other races. And for that reason, you have a very important role to play in the world affairs. Once you understand that, take your role. No one should ever make you feel inferior. As mothers, as grandmothers, as sisters, as nieces, let's come together and let not only our husbands and our brothers and our uncles, no, we need to work together as equals, because it's going to take all of us working together to make our Africa what we want it to be.
Madam Ambassador Arikana Chihombori-Quao, thank you so much. We much appreciate it.
What type of installation could be welcomed in Burkina Faso? We want it even if it's a small nuclear power plant, which can really produce energy in quantity. Because as I said, it's not only Burkina Faso that will benefit. In the sub-region, we know our difficulties in terms of electricity. Everyone will need it. So, I think we are a bit at the heart, and there are many countries around that can benefit. What can we wish today for Burkina Faso? For its people to be finally prosperous. What can we wish for Burkina? I think for the whole world, we have to wish for peace first, for the people to come back, for the people to live in peace. And we also wish that people don't interfere in our affairs, because we have capacities. We are not dragged along as some imagine. We are able to walk alone. We don't necessarily need to be held by the hand. The vision of this summit has just ended. What assessment do you draw from these 2 days of meetings, of forums? Okay, hello, and thank you for the opportunity to express ourselves from here. We came to this forum, which yesterday held its epilogue, and we can say that we are very satisfied. The assessment is quite positive, because it was about seeing the prospects for what concerns our states and what also concerns our relations with the Russian Federation. So, we have explored enough areas and there are good prospects. You were able to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in a bilateral format. What do you remember from this meeting? In a bilateral format, it was about discussing our particular problems, including security and defense issues, but also economic issues, because it goes hand in hand with the economy, development and infrastructure. It goes hand in hand with security issues. So basically, that's what we wanted to discuss. Any concrete results that you can tell us about? The most urgent result for us is the issue of military equipment. So that's what we're on. So, in the coming days, we hope to be able to start the acquisitions and everything. We'll talk about this area a little later, but I would like to ask you a question. You made a statement earlier. You said that the Burkina Faso people supported Russia's special military operation. Can you explain that to us? Of course, it is the right of the people to express an opinion. So the vast majority, I said, supports it. But it's not about focusing on that, because any war is bad. There is no good war. As long as people die, it's not good. We often say that even terrorists who attack us, we want them to drop their weapons and come back to their senses. Because they are young people who are being killed. But if they don't want to drop them, we have no choice. We have to fight them. But we also have a feeling, because the Burkina Faso people have been suffering for 28 years now. People die every day. But since our action, I can tell you that we are also very disappointed with the behavior of some people. And that's what gives us a mixed feeling. In terms of equipment, we can't. Some countries have closed us down and blocked us. So it's a feeling of desolation to see that on the other side. We give enough equipment, which unfortunately ends up on our lands. Disappointed on the part of some of your partners or former partners. Yes, some of our former partners, we must say it clearly. We are very disappointed that we cannot give ourselves a cartridge and that we can support other states that are also fighting. Why can't we support them? But what I say is that it is a shame that these equipment are found on our soil with terrorism. It's not common, so it would be desirable for it to stop right away. Yesterday, during the summit, most of the African states spoke out to find a solution to the negotiation. But what we understood is that there is no will to negotiate with a party. So, it's getting complicated. Of course, we will come back a little later on the military component. But I would first like to have your opinion, in general, on the current state of relations between Burkina Faso and Russia. What are they? So, we must say that the relations are being relaunched. These are relations, as we said, since 1992, the embassy was closed. Currently, there are agreements. It's okay, we will reopen. Diplomats are already in contact. And trade relations must resume, in terms of industry and everything. We discussed a lot of things in our trade relations and everything. So, for example, you were talking about industry. In which areas? In several areas. Agricultural, we talked about it. The mining industry, we talked about it. Infrastructure, a lot of things to build. So you will also qualify Russia as a partner country of Burkina Faso. So, you talked about these perspectives, but how can this be translated concretely? The partnership with Russia is first of all strategic. And concretely, what affects us is also the speed of reaction. First, we must understand that Russia is concerned about the humanitarian situation in Burkina Faso. It must be said, it was one of the states that sent us to eat, to move internally. And they announced yesterday that they were going to send us to move. It's very good that people are concerned, but not all countries are concerned. First of all, about our populations. And on top of all that, in terms of development, we still have a lot of agreements in progress. A lot of memorandums of intent are being signed, and we hope to receive Russian investors soon, economic operators, so that the economic flow can be more profitable for all of us. You said it, the diplomatic component is also important. The fact of reopening the embassy will make the exchanges more simplified between the two countries. Of course, it's very important. Tell me, we already have a lot of compatriots. Russia plans to increase the number of scholarships in various scientific and technological fields in universities. There are already Burkina Faso trainees, and the number will increase. So, of course, we need a diplomatic representation to manage all the administrative aspects and strengthen the cooperation that exists between us. Cooperation all over the world, in all areas. Of course, all possible areas. We are open in all areas. Are there any specific areas where Russia may have had expertise? Where do you have more expectations? So we immediately talked about the issue of defense and security. This is our #1 priority. Then we can talk about energy. And we expect a lot from Russia, because Russia is a specialist in a given type of energy. That could be very beneficial for us and for the whole sub-region. Energy independence, because it starts with the energy that the industries can develop. We may want to install factories and everything, but if we don't have energy, it's complicated. So we started on this basis. There are infrastructures, oil products and everything. So there is still a lot of potential. We also have a lot of things to share with Russia. In the agricultural field, there are enough tropical products that Russia needs to export to Russia. To transform on the spot with industries and export. You talk about the energy component, which is indeed very important. More than that, the extraction of raw materials, such as hydrocarbons or the production of electricity. So the production of electricity is very important for us. That's what I was saying. Russia has hydrocarbons to export to us, whether it's all derivatives, products, and especially bitumen for our roads. Because we have very few roads. We need road infrastructure, rails for the train, and everything. We discussed it. So these are priorities for us. We will have to be able to quickly move up a notch in this area. This is what already allows the internal economy to behave well. And the electrical component? What type of installation could be welcomed in Burkina Faso? We want it even if it's a small nuclear power plant, which can really produce energy in quantity. Because as I said, it's not only Burkina Faso that will benefit. In the sub-region, we know our difficulties in terms of electricity. Everyone will need it. So, I think we are a bit at the heart. And there are many countries around that can benefit. So electricity is very important. And so you had your first contacts with Rosatom, for example, the energy company. Yes, the ministers in question will change. There is a working group that will be put in place to manage all these aspects in general. So now, to evoke a little bit the security situation in your country, when we listen to Western media, and especially French media, the image of the Burkinabe army is not necessarily dazzling. It is accused of all kinds of crimes. Why this image, in your opinion? No, it's logical. The media are also at war. We benefit from it. It's logical for them. But we are not there anymore. Who destructed our armies? That's it.
In Rwanda, if you're coming here, particularly if you're an African, the first 30 to 60 days, you're allowed access depending on what you're coming to do to the country, be it travel, be it business exploration, be it just sightseeing to see what the country has to offer. And this is really monumental, particularly for Ghana. And I'll tell you for a couple of reasons. One, for political reason. I think Ghana is one of those countries that is a beacon of hope and democracy in the African continent. it's such a peaceful country. It's relatively safe in comparison to many other African countries. And so it's really, really important that they make it easier for the other Africans to be able to travel to their country, because this is a place that is great to be, is great to see, is great to learn from me, is great to interact with other people. The other thing is from the tourism front. Ghana is such a rich country in terms of people, in terms of culture, in terms of food, in terms of places that you can visit. It's a country I lived for about 2 years. And to be honest with you, I didn't even scratch the surface of that country. From the clothing, going to the market, looking at different fabrics that are in the country and the different meaning. It's just so colorful. It's so beautiful. From the food in the country is very diverse. Different communities have different types of food. For the Ghanaians who are watching, I went through this roller coaster of emotions where I would discover food and then it would become my favorite. So I tried jollof and it became my favorite. Then I tried wache. Then I was eating wache for close to a week every single day. Then I tried banku and tilapia, which became my favorite. Then I tried fufu and light soup. There's also contomre. So there are different types of food that someone can try there. There are different regions where someone can travel. You can go to the Volta region. You can go to Takora. The beaches are absolutely beautiful there. Accra and Cape Coast have a wealth of history about the country. The Cape Coast Castle is one of the places where during the slave trade, slaves were held there and then shipped across the Gulf of Guinea into the Atlantic Ocean, going abroad to work in plantations. So there's so much history in that country that you can learn and things that you can explore from a tourism front. But I also think that it's very important to begin breaking these barriers, because even just in terms of business, there are people who might want to come and explore your country. And sometimes visas become such a huge barrier because they're not the most streamlined thing on the African continent. It's as if when you're applying for a visa, there's so much paperwork that you have to fill, and you never know whether your visa will be accepted or whether it will be denied. And sometimes some of these opportunities you need to pop in and out. So it's really, really important. And then again, like I think there's this clip of this famous biker who's traveling across Africa on her bike, and she's documenting just how difficult it is, particularly when you're crossing through land borders, how difficult it is even for Africans to cross other borders. I think very many vloggers have done stories about traveling Africa by road, and it is so, so hard. There's so much bureaucracy at border points, which discourages many people. To be honest with you, air travel on the African continent is really, really expensive. We pay anywhere between $250, $300.
Brothers and sisters, I'm very glad to see such things happening in the motherland. I'm very much glad to see people like Ibrahim Traoré, Dr. Arikana, are bringing the wake-up call to the diaspora and to the people in the motherland. I've been saying this, and I'll continue saying that for the black continent to change, for us to unite, that for this continent to work out for everyone, and that we get rid of the exploitation of our own resources. We get rid of the extortion that has been happening and the oppression. First, we must show support to those leaders who are willing to help us to run this movement. That we are not going to sit back and watch and talk behind without offering our own support. That you brothers in the diaspora, you sisters in the diaspora, you brothers in Africa, the youths of this continent must wake up. We must wake up for real, because this is not a one-person movement. We've made errors in the past that we let our own people down. When they needed our support, we were not there. And we say, for us to change this narrative, Dr. Arikana has told us many a times that we need to unite with the people in the diaspora, that we need to get our brothers and sisters in the diaspora back in the land and make sure they are safe to help us in this movement. That we need their manpower, we need their knowledge, we need their skills here in Africa to make this continent great. That we need to be self-sustained continent, that we don't need to depend on their cars. We don't need to depend on their technology, that we can build our own technology. Now, I want to remind you of something. I've been saying this so many times, that the wars that are happening in Africa have been planned, and the Western countries, and I'm going to be on record by saying that the Western countries, the US, France, Belgium, and other countries have always been at the core of these wars, that they have supported and run havoc in the continent of Africa. You tell me, how will someone in the DRC maybe own a gun that is worth $20,000 or $30,000 or $100,000 because they have some real guns down there, but they can't afford a meal that costs $1 a day? You tell me, where do they get all those funding? It's because someone is behind this. And this is why Dr. Arikana is saying, even if you get rid of one president in Africa, they'll still bring in their puppet. Even if you try to vote out the puppets they have elected in Africa, they will have a way to get another puppet in Africa. So the only way for us to go in this war, the only way that we are going to make ourselves very important, is by one, uniting. The unity of black people is their biggest fear, that they live with their success today, that they have their European economy successful today, that the US was built by black people. Let someone come here and challenge me, because I know, if you know history, you know history. And this is why we say black people, black folks must learn their history. Most black people have assumed their history, and this is where we have a problem. And in most cases, I do say that the people in the diaspora somehow know the history of black people than the people in the motherland, that the people in the motherland have been so ignorant in copying the Western culture that they are adapting to whiteness. And this is the biggest problem that we have with us as black folks. We are trying to copy what was not ours. We've actually gotten ourselves into a culture that was never ours. So we really need to restructure back. We really need to get back on the drawing board and see where we went wrong. We can't play the same games. We can't use the same tricks for these people. We can't use the tricks that our grandfathers used and they failed, and we expect us to be successful. People learn from mistakes. We've made a lot of mistakes in the past. And the big question tonight is, are we willing and are we in the right direction to make some decisions that will cost us, yes, but save us at one point? That we no longer need to have a continent that is so much ruptured. We no longer need to have a continent that is dominated by American companies. We no longer need to have a continent that does not have its say. It's the other day that we've seen that the UN, the AU, the African Union, is not even being run by Africans. Everyone there is a puppet. Now, if the organization that was meant to unite Africa, if the organization that was meant to bring black people together, the black folks, and you see, it is the African Union is very much okay when some other countries, like the countries in the Sahel, are not in the movement. They are not actually in the union. They do not sit at the highest table of the decision making in Africa. And you ask yourself, what unity is the African Union speaking about? And this is why we say the African Union has been at the core of dividing Africa, because all those who are there are serving the interest of the US, France, and these European powers. That those who are there, their caucus meetings have always been sponsored by the US and the companies that belong to Europe. So Who do you tell me is going to unite Africa? These people are being called dictators like Ibrahim Traoré. Those people who have disobeyed their masters' policies in Africa, those who have gone against the likes of the US and France, are the one who are going to save us, because the mess has already happened. And if we are really not keen, we are going to have a real problem in Africa, a real problem. And this is why we say we must go back to the table, restructure, and see where did we go wrong, because two wrongs cannot make one right. Two wrongs cannot be right. So we must go back and see where did we go wrong, and how should we restructure, and how are we going to do things different? Who is going to lead the movement, and how efficient is the movement going to benefit Africa? Because we've had movements in Africa earlier. We've had movements that have failed. We've had so many organizations, the SADC, the ECOWAS, but really puppet movements in Africa, puppet organizations that have been there to divide further Africa. Tell me why there is SADC, why there is ECOWAS, why there is Eastern Africa movement. Why do we all have these regions divided, and some countries trying to operate on their own, while others trying to operate on their own, while others are trying to talk their own language and come out with their own currency? What Africa we having? This is happening because someone is behind this. And as early as we discover this is why Muammar Gaddafi said that black people are the enemy of their own. That you see the division that is happening, that you see the oppression that is happening, and the exploitation is because a black man is benefiting somewhere. That these presidents have allowed this to happen in their countries because they are benefiting, and they are fearing someone will come after their lives, and they can't tell this to the people. Ibrahim Traoré has said it all, and he still survives. It is when you live in fear that they come for you. Africans, diasporans, everyone who is a person of color, we are going to do this. Thank you so much for having taken the time to watch this video. I know I've not been around for around 4 days because I've had serious problems and I needed to sort them out, but I'm back. Thank you so much for watching this episode. See you on the next. I love you all.